how did the Native Americans eat? They would go along the prairie, they'd find a buffalo, they'd kill the buffalo. How much did they eat until they couldn't eat anymore? And then what did they do with the rest? Well, they made jerky and pemmican and things like that so that they can store it and have food, because obviously the food would spoil. And this seems to fall right in line with what they did.
Hey, what's up, family? I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joe.
And we are two crazy ketos.
Welcome back to the channel. And if you are watching this video on the day we release it, happy 4th of July.
Yes, happy Independence Day to everyone watching. And today I think it's very appropriate that we are actually interviewing an Army veteran, our friend Phillip Meece, who is actually a combat medic in the Army. And we're going to be interviewing him today about keeping meat shelf stable.
So we are here with Phillip, who is the creator of the Carnivore Bar.
Thank you so much for being here, Phillip.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
So Phil, we had a few quick questions. Obviously, we met you a few years ago, immediately fell in love with your product. But, I know a lot of people don't really know what it is or where it came from. So we wanted to have you kind of explain, first of all, what is the Carnivore? What is pemmican? And then where did your idea of coming up with this product and then marketing it to people come from?
So I was a combat medic. I served overseas in Afghanistan. And, I was eating a bunch of terrible, terrible food and exposed to all sorts of stressors, chemicals, junk, and I got really, really sick. And so working backwards, I tried to figure out what made me so ill. And the search continues, but I wanted to look back and say, okay, if modern food is missing something or has too much of something, and I want to avoid or find that missing ingredient, what can I do to find really healthy food that could have survived on the battlefield, that could have made it to Afghanistan? Because shelf stability is a big issue with getting food overseas. My thought was, okay, well, this surely, I'm surely not the first person to have this problem. So turns out Native Americans made a food called pemmican, and they would have made it in a rawhide bag like this. This is a parfleche. It's rawhide leather, and they packed it full of meaty goodness. And the pemmican literally translates travel grease. So very in line with the keto, diets. And so I was like, oh, wait, there might be something here. If I could take this ancient food, this ancient recipe, and take the modern interest in carnivore and keto diets and low carb diets, it's like, well, maybe I can put these together, and then I could solve this problem that made me so ill overseas. So that, in a nutshell, is the Carnivore Bar, pemmican. That's the mission.
So it's funny because, we always talk about, eating, ancestrally. And, there's always arguments about what is ancestrally? You have people are like, well, there's no such thing as cavemen or something like that. So I always say, let's go back to pre-industrial revolution. Let's go back to Dances with Wolves time. Right?
Yeah.
What did people eat? How did the Native Americans eat? They would go along the prairie, they'd find a buffalo, they'd kill the buffalo. How much did they eat until they couldn't eat anymore? And then what did they do with the rest? Well, they made jerky and pemmican and things like that so that they can store it and have food, because obviously the food would spoil. And this seems to fall right in line with what they did.
Well, and you've really solved such a big problem for people like us who are wanting something that's made with responsible ingredients. And we look for the perfect meat stick. We've looked for the perfect beef jerky that has really clean ingredients. But the problem with even the best of them is it not being shelf stable. That, really great beef jerky has a shelf life. And so you have been able to go back to the old way of doing things and really find a modern solution that we can really benefit from. Now, I've got to ask you, what have you learned about the keto carnivore consumer that has surprised you the most during this adventure?
I guess what has surprised me is the evolution, really. The evolution of the market. So for me, when I'm using this ancestral approach, it's basically I just don't know what made me sick. I don't know what in the modern food made me sick. But if you look at obesity charts, there's this inflection point in the 80s, and it just swings wildly out of control. And you're like, well, something about our environment, something about our food, something about our lifestyle has gone wrong. And, the customers are constantly exploring. They're trying different things all of the time. And so I entered the space thinking carnivore is the answer. Beef tallow salt, that's it. That's all you need. Zero carb, high fat. And, I was off to the races. I was only going to need one product. And it turns out that's not the case. So my I'm about 50% honey salted. And, as far as my main selling product is the OG salted zero carb bar, and then one with 7 grams of carbs with a little bit of raw honey. One of my main suspects for what may make me sick is the preservatives. And that leads to what you were saying about shelf stability. It's like, it's very hard to get something that's truly shelf stable without adding preservatives. And so those high quality things that don't have preservatives, they tend not to last. And so the Native Americans obviously didn't have a fridge. They came up with this tradition on this continent that didn't use hermectants or other preservative techniques. Like, I mean, salted pork and salted cod is a big one in the ancestral world, hundreds of years ago in the Western cultures. But over here, they did something different and they didn't add anything. So I started from this place of humility and just uncertainty about what has made me ill. It's like, well, I don't want too much of anything that is unnatural. And so from there, I've been broadening my horizons gradually as the community has requested.
If you go back to what I talked about before, where I said, Native Americans would go along the prairie, they would kill a buffalo or whatever prey they could find. The other thing that they would do is occasionally they would come across honey from bees, or they'd find some berries and they would consume them. And then sometimes from my research, at least, they would include some of that stuff in their pemmican. So my question I have for you is, you're now incorporating things like, listen, one of my favorite things that you release, and I am really hoping that this comes back because I've only got 6 bars of the apple pie left. But you started incorporating the spices and the fruits and maybe a little bit of honey here and there, which I believe that's what Native Americans would do. But do you get pushback from the carnivore community? Because in my experience, you've got such a big variety in, a range of people in the carnivore, where you have people in carnivore going, it's only beef and salt. And then you have some people go, like, if you're having coffee, you're not really carnivore. And if you're having honey, you're not really carnivore. And I've even encountered people like, well, I won't even support a company that will promote something that's not just 100% meat. How are you navigating that space?
Yeah, there are extremists in every group, but I think that most people are here for the right reasons. They're good-hearted. They're a part of the community. They are in search of answers. And so I use evolution as kind of my guiding principle. You can take it from a religious point of view too. And pastoralists were people of the book, Abraham and all the monotheistic religions that have become so popular. They started cultivating and making their animals as fatty as possible. So it's a Cain and Abel is the whole story. It's like, should you grow crops? Should you raise animals? It's very human to have this conundrum of what it is that we should eat and what is, pleasing to God or evolutionary consistent or consistent with our own biology. So the things I've included are things that you could find that a caveman could have found. You could have found an apple. You could have found berries. You could have found spices. And they may not be, like, percentage-wise a huge portion of your meal, but you may have, like a baby, you just, put things in your mouth and it's like, oh, so-and-so died eating that mushroom. Don't do that one again. But 99% of things that are from the plant kingdom are pretty toxic. But the things that aren't toxic, might have been pretty special to us. And I don't know what fraction of our diet that would have been, but I can't imagine us passing like a hungry, calorie-starved person passing up wild berries
Mm.
or something like that, or honey. The interview with the Hadza that I really like from Fearless and Far, um, asked one of the tribe members what it is that you need to be happy, and they said meat and honey.
Mm. There you
I
go.
was like, that's a pretty great answer from a hunter gatherer. It's like meat and honey. And so they've been exposed to some like corn and some grain products, but like they still like retained this memory of like, these are the things that lead to survival, lead to flourishing, lead to happiness. It's like, okay, that's a pretty good place to start. And so anything that you could get your hands on that grows outside in the wild that doesn't need excessive cultivation, that's something that I would consider putting in the bar because, it's from that humility going down. It's like people are asking me to compromise, but I'm going to keep to those principles and only compromise things that make sense evolutionarily.
Thank you so much for that. My next question actually has to do with where do you see the keto and carnivore community evolving to next? And I will say this is interesting. When we first met you and we first started incorporating the carnivore bar, we were not grandparents. We have since become grandparents, and
Congrats.
thank you. Probably not unlike the Native Americans that were first, making these pemmican bars. We learned you have to feed toddlers when you are babysitting them. And what's going to evolve in our diaper bag that's different than it was when we were young parents raising children of our own. Now we are participating as a grandparent. What are we going to bring to the table? And I will say, our granddaughter is a huge fan of the carnivore bar. And we, as grandparents, feel really good giving that to her. And even from her first interactions with meat and food, like that she could chew, the carnivore bar we brought along with it because we knew that it would be safe. It was delivered in a consistency that we didn't have to worry about. And so we were glad that for our granddaughter, that was her Gerber graduates food. It was the food we could take along to Disney World. And I wonder, do you see the expansion going towards like raising children a little bit differently than we did in the past?
Credit where it's due. The processed food companies have kind of got it dialed in as far as like convenience and texture and like delivering that consistency. I think so as a natural food brand, like one of my goals is to like try to do our best to measure up. And if you've been a long-term customer, you know that there are slight variations in every carnivore bar, but we do our very best because we make it all by hand. And so we try to not add anything that means very labor intensive processes, but in doing that, it's essentially pulverized. Like ancestrally, they would have used a mortar and pestle. We have modern tools, and sanitation standards that Native Americans wouldn't recognize. But given those constraints, we try to make it as close to the authentic experience as possible, while also being modern and convenient. We have these. This is a fajita prototype, but we have these like mylar bags that are our version of the rawhide. This is metallized film that protects it from oxygen and moisture, that meets food safety standards. But they're if you're going to put it in your diaper bag for your grandkids, like you need something that's not going to be a giant mess, or
Yeah.
Ziploc bags full of meat, organs, all kinds of stuff gets smushed. It's like the convenience of modern junk food is something that we've become addicted to. But
Yeah.
on our health journey, we don't like how that makes us feel. We don't like the results. We don't like the weight gain. We don't like the increased all cause mortality. It's like we want to take charge of our health, but our busy lifestyles sometimes get the better of us. And so the compromise I was wanting to make is I could say I don't want to compromise my diet. I don't want to compromise my health. But I will go to above and beyond effort to create this ancestral food and make it modern and convenient.
Now, just to clarify for people who may not know this about our granddaughter is only 2.5 years old. And she has been eating the carnivore bar since she was about a year old. And I think
Wow.
my biggest memory of her, she immediately loved it. She is the only person that I will share my apple pie carnivore bars with. I will not even share them with Rachel.
He will not.
So, but I will share them with my granddaughter because she is my light and my joy. But we went to Disney World with her when she was about a year and a half old. And when we have her, and as she was raised, her first foods were like breast milk mixed with beef liver and
Bone broth.
and some bone broth. I mean, those were her first foods. But we took her there and we were like, we're not going to give her junk. And she went like 11 hours, never had a fit, never like barely even took a nap. She didn't have that crashing up and down. And as we're going through Disney World, we would hand her a carnivore bar. She had like three of them in one day. And I mean, again, at a year and a half old, it was satisfying. She would literally dig through the bag and pull them out and eat them. So this is when you're giving a child something like this, they don't even want the sugar, especially when you're starting them off on the right foods and not introducing that sugar right away.
Yeah, it's like if on the keto diet, it's always a question of which fats,
Mm.
which fats do you prioritize? And ancestrally, it would have been mostly animal fats. It'd be mostly cholesterol, and it's the kind of form of fat that, kids are the best teachers. They crave it and they go right towards it. They're building all of that brain tissue. They're growing so very fast. And they're becoming fully fledged conscious people, and it's fat that really powers that, not only energetically, not in their own beta oxidation in their mitochondria, but it's also structurally. It's a part of every cell. It's a part especially of brain tissue and neural tube, like all of your nervous system is regulated by that. And if you're growing rapidly, that's something that your body is going to have an acute need for. Now you can placate it with sugar, but it's not what the body creates. So the body can't take that sugar and turn it into the same structural things that it needs that fat for. So you got those two different things going on, that those rapid growth periods really reveal the body's need as it develops. So that's a fun story. I've heard that a lot.
We really appreciate you. We appreciate your service and being on the front line for our country. I think that it is really an honor to interview you once again and to be able to share that these two new flavors that you are releasing today are being released on July 4th. I think that is very appropriate. But we just wanted to get your take on, we've got fajita and we have the honey heat.
So where did the idea come from?
Yeah.
Like we are super excited. We have tried them.
Delicious.
They're delicious. But where did you get the idea of like the honey heat and then the fajita flavor?
Well, which is your favorite?
I don't know.
I like the fajita. It is very different.
I think I really do like the honey heat. It reminds me, I like things with a little bit of a spice, but that honey just kind of like dials it down a little bit. So it's, it kind of brings me back to the honey salted, but not, I don't know the nutrition facts on it. It feels like it's a little bit less honey than the honey salted, so
It is.
enjoy that more.
Yeah, it's only 3 grams of carbs.
And I
So
like
it's
the fajita. I feel like it is such an interesting, I tend to be a more savory person, and I really like the spice blend that you have in there. It's nice and pronounced, pre-keto. If I was going to have like a potato chip or something that was, a savory thing, I want a lot of seasoning in it. I feel like it has a very nice amount of seasoning in the bar.
We went up a little bit more in our seasoning with this mix. The idea is like, munchies, it's crunchy, it's creamy, and it has this flavor. So it's giving you that vibe of that processed food, or like chips or something like that, but it's not any of those terrible ingredients. So we're trying to meet people where they are. We all have cravings, and it's like, this is something that you could actually eat that's going to be good for you, that might hit the spot, but not compromise your goals and what you're trying to do with that. So the two different flavors, to answer your question more directly, is, we want a zero carb option. So when we did our pluck versions of the bar, we did zesty garlic. When we met KetoCon before it became Hack Your Health, zesty garlic and honey barbecue. So we're mirroring the same kind of evolution, which we're launching a flavor that's zero carb for the people who are, every level of seriousness. But with the heat, we just found naturally that palate wise, we preferred a little less sweet with the heat.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things I really don't like about people trying to make really healthy food. They just bomb the honey.
You're so
They just
right.
bomb the honey. And I'm like, like paleo treats or paleo like snacks or desserts, paleo desserts. It's like they just like add like too much dates or too many like it's just like this is derailing me. This is going to give me cravings for sugar. This is not what I want. So 3 grams of carbs. That's all. It basically has the same macros, a little bit more fat, 38 grams of fat, 20 grams protein each one. And just 3 grams of carbs because I don't know what it is about the heat, but the heat just brought out the sweetness. And so we just dialed that back until it hit that point where it was like, I can taste that it's sweet, but it's not overwhelming us. And that's where we settled.
I think it really is perfect. And again, I like the fact that you're like, okay, we'll do a zero carb. We're gonna do one with a little bit of honey because people will ask us like, oh, well, why would you eat that honey salted? You're keto. I think it depends on where you are in your health journey. We have been living this lifestyle for 8 years now. We've taken back our metabolic health, and for us, the occasional having that little bit of raw honey, and I think it's really important to emphasize that it is raw honey. There's a difference between raw honey and going buying the little bear thing that's in the store,
Yeah.
But having that little bit, is it really going to hurt us? Now, if you're trying to lose 100 pounds and you're still a diabetic, you may not want to mess with that yet, but that's where you're bringing in the zero carb or the unsweetened. And so there's a little bit of something for everybody.
Now,
Yeah.
you as the inventor, what is your bet? Which one do you think will be the most popular?
I don't know. I mean, I really like the flavor of the habanero. Like there's habanero and the honey heat. So we did jalapeno and habanero and to give like a forward on the spice and then that lingering aftertaste but it's a little earthy. And so the blend really worked with that. And the fajita, we just went with, it's mostly like cayenne. It's just pretty like vanilla, fun spices. So I don't know what will do best. I never know because, I thought that, I was one and done, beef tallow salt. But as the community has evolved into more animal based and to be more explorative, they have surprised me constantly. And so I see it, what I do as a service to the community. I'm serving the community on people's health journey. They'll tell me what they want, and I will do my best to make the very best version of that I can feel good about and that hopefully they feel good about too.
Well, we really appreciate you for being on the front lines of this carnivore product space where we can trust you. You have proven time and time again for years now that you're constantly and consistently going to bring really a meal replacement bar that we can utilize when we need to. And then we can trust you to help us kind of be a little bit more of a culinary adventurer when it comes to expanding our palates and being willing to try new flavors as you come out with these limited time flavors. And this is a limited time offer, right? So you have
Right.
made a certain batch of these, and when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, basically. So when we do these trial runs, like we'll basically just get feedback from our community and see how they're liking it. Obviously, everyone really liked the apple pie. But the sourcing on that was very hard to get enough volume of unadulterated product. There are people putting rice and all kinds of other preservatives and contaminants in their apple powder. And so to get just apple, because I want to just put apple, nothing else in there, it's challenging. So you have to find a source, a supplier that can provide the volume, and that's constantly changing with the carnivore community. So the where I started and where I'm going to end are going to be completely different. We've worked with Joyce Farms for the last I think it's coming on like 6 years now. So we've been really happy with them. But as the beef markets experience all kinds of stress, like, we'll see. Grass fed, grass finish is really key for us for ingredient qualities. But anything that is natural, that is culturally relevant, that enriches or enhances people's ability to live this way and eat this way and feel their best, I'm all for it. There will be people on the super far end of the sick spectrum, their lion diet, ruminant meat only, that this won't be for them, but I make the bar that is. If they need the beef tallow salt, I will always make that original version, and then explore as suits you. Because I think we're all on this, if we're being honest, we're all on this journey, and we don't know what's going to work. We have this thesis and then we explore, and then sometimes it's like, oh no, that didn't work, bring it back. Right. And then I think as we go through product development, it's very similar to our individual journeys, as we're all experimenting with ourselves, getting our blood work, getting our blood glucose, our A1C, and like seeing how we're reacting to all these things. And many people have been more explorative. And that has really educated me as I listen to their stories. It's like, what is working for you? Because at the bottom line, I don't want people to be more keto, more carnivore, more dogmatic. I want human flourishing.
Well, we are super excited about the new flavors. I will say on a side note, if you are taking requests for new flavors, how about a blueberry one?
Oh, that's
just like fried blueberries in beef. That's I feel like would be like maybe a little bit of honey in there, something just something to put in there. That would be, I think, would be a great personal flavor.
Something that Joe could hide from his wife. Yeah. Is the next flavor that we hide from our wife. But thank you, Phillip. We appreciate your time so much. Happy 4th of July to you, and thank you so much for your service to our nation.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Happy 4th.
I absolutely love getting the opportunity to talk to Phillip. I always learn something when I talk to him. He's like so knowledgeable on the way Native Americans preserve meat, and I love it when he pulls out his little satchel, which I can never remember the name of it. But when you think about the fact that this is before technology, they came up with a way to make tallow and lard not leak all over the place and not go rancid from the environment.
Well, and it was something that could be used to feed the entire family, like what came out in our interview. From Peyton all the way to my mother, you have an ability to feed the entire family with shelf-stable food that could travel with you. And it's interesting, we're finding once again, going back to the old way of doing things is the new cool.
Yeah, so we love the Carnivore Bar. This is something that we use, obviously we travel a lot. We always have some in our RV when we're going to Disney World or Universal Studios, if we're going camping, if we're going on a cruise. We always bring one with us because it's something that if we get into that, thing where, hey, I really would like to have something to eat right now, I don't have to even think twice about eating something that I shouldn't. We can reach into Rachel's purse or go into our, refrigerator and grab something that is literally just meat, fat, maybe a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of honey, but something that is pure natural ingredients, and it's just a great thing. So we're going to leave a link for the Carnivore Bar down below. I would highly advise getting one of the new flavors.
Yes.
I really do like both of them. What is your favorite one?
I really like the fajita.
You really like the fajita?
Yeah. And like you're saying, I really appreciate that he doesn't compromise so that we never have to compromise in the way that we're eating. And even when it comes to the seasoning blends that he's using, he's not compromising in those ingredients. It's not like he is, putting sugar or any type of wonky ingredients, even in the fajita blend or in the honey heat.
Yeah, so you've got the two flavors, honey heat, you've got fajita, you know, they also have the other flavors, just the salted, and you have the honey salted. So let us know down in the comment section if these are flavors that interest you, or if you've had the Carnivore Bar, what are your favorite flavors? Also, maybe like send him a little note saying like, hey, I'd love to try this flavor if you ever thought about coming in. You know, he's always looking for ways that he can evolve. I really would like to see the apple pie come back. I didn't even think about when he was talking about how hard it was to source clean apples. I mean, think about that. The fact that it is hard to source clean apples.
Just give me an apple.
That just like freaks me out that we can't even source clean fruit in the country. So, you know, you never know what they're going to be able to do. But use the link down below. When you use that link, we do have a discount down there. I believe it's 10% if I remember right. And we really appreciate it when you use that. It does help benefit the channel. Now, if you like seeing videos like this, please do us a favor. Take a look at the video we have linked right over there. Also, make sure you take a look at the most recent videos. I'm going to put right over here.
But whether you head this way or you head this way, don't forget to head this way. Subscribe to our channel and click the little bell icon, and that way every single time there's a new flavor of the Carnivore Bar, you'll be alerted to it.
Till next time.
Bye.